Hello, everybody. This is Gary. Today is Tuesday, September 21st, 2021. It's 8:53 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Rochester, New York, in the United States. And this is my coping with schizophrenia vlog entry for today. Today I'm doing pretty good. It's been a pretty uneventful day. Went outside for a walk today. Did some work on my computer. Um, my symptoms are pretty much under control. I'm back to smoking cigarettes again, which is a constant struggle to try to quit. I fell down into temptation and went out and bought a pack of cigarettes today, and they're very expensive. They're like $13 a pack. And it's starting to eat away at my money as much as it's eating away at my lungs. I'll continue to try to quit smoking, but other than that, I'm doing okay. My symptoms are pretty much under control. My hallucinations aren't that bad. Actually, today my hallucinations are almost non-existent. I took my meds a little while ago. It's almost 9 p.m. here in Rochester, New York. Um, my paranoia is not that bad today. My depression and anxiety are not that bad today. I think I'm coping pretty well today. So there's not much to report about my symptoms. But I wanted to talk about a subject that comes up a lot when people talk about schizophrenia, and is that or schizoaffective disorder. Um, Schizoaffective disorder is considered to be on the spectrum of schizophrenia, and technically, I have schizoaffective disorder, which is on the schizophrenia spectrum disorder list. Um, I want to talk about the schizophrenia run in families, the psychosis in general run in families, and I believe it does. Scientists don't know exactly what causes schizophrenia. There's a lot of things that might contribute to it: genetics, family history, environmental factors, toxins. There's a lot of different theories. I can only go based on my own personal experience about whether or not mental illness in general runs in families like depression, anxiety, psychosis, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder. Um, I was born into a family of 11 children. My sister died before I was born at a very young age. I believe she was only a few months old. Her name was Beverly. Um, and out of the surviving 10 children, my sister Patty, the oldest girl in the 10 children, third oldest in the family, she committed suicide with a shotgun in 1996. She had some very severe mental problems, more disturbed than any of her brothers and sisters or my father thought. She committed suicide in 1996, um, which was really the end result of many years of severe depression and psychotic symptoms. My mother died when I'm the second youngest of 10 children. I have a younger brother. My mother died from alcoholism when I was 8, but the alcoholism was just uh, a way of her coping with severe mental illness. I mean, after having 10 children, I'm not a woman, obviously, but I would imagine after having 11 pregnancies, it put tremendous stress on my mother's mind and body and may have contributed to her mental illness. Postpartum depression, um, postpartum psychosis, alcohol, all of it mixed together created severe stress for my mother, severe mental illness. Um, my point is this: that my sister committed suicide. My mother was mentally ill and addicted to alcohol, um, and I have schizoaffective disorder, which is a form of schizophrenia. Um, and some of my other brothers and sisters have not had a severe mental illness, but they have taken antidepressants. They have taken anti-anxiety medications. Um, One of my brothers was an alcoholic. I don't know if he's still drinking. I don't speak to my family, so I don't know. Um, but alcoholism and mental illness seem to run in the family. Well, I personally never got physically addicted to alcohol to the point where when I quit drinking, I went through withdrawal because that never happened. I was a binge drinker through college and even before I went to college, when I was like 18, 19, I would go out drinking with my friends on the weekends. So I never drank every single day to the point where if I stopped drinking, I would go through severe withdrawal and then possibly die from that. Um, that's the situation my mother was in. She was drinking every single day and going off alcohol suddenly may have contributed to her death. I don't know. I never got the full story from my father or my brothers and sisters. I'm only vaguely aware that she died partly from drinking and her mental illness. Um, but that's not to say I didn't have a drinking problem, because obviously I did. Um, I drank to get drunk. I don't like the taste of alcohol. I don't like the taste of beer. I wasn't drinking it because I like the flavor of beer. I actually can't stand the flavor of beer. I can't stand the flavor of most alcohol. That's one where I did drink. I would drink the sweet liqueurs like peach brandy, peach schnapps, rumble mints, anything that had a sweet taste to it, I would drink it. And I was always drinking to get drunk, and I was always drinking around other people. I never drank alone, but again, that doesn't mean I didn't have a drinking problem. I did have a drinking problem, and then after a while, it just wasn't fun anymore. So when I did stop drinking, there was no withdrawal. There was no really missing it anymore. It wasn't really fun anymore to do it. Drinking became boring, especially when I did try drinking alone. There's no fun in that. So I haven't had a drink in 15, 20 years. Um, so alcoholism and mental illness tend to run in families, I believe, based on my own personal experience. I mean, if you think about it, out of the 12 people in my family, my father, my mother, their 10 surviving children, three of those people were mentally ill and had drinking problems, and actually four people had drinking problems. My brother was a heavy drinker. Um, he used to get into fistfights with my father when they were both drunk. Um, my father drank, but not quite as heavily as my mother did. Um, Whether or not my father had a drinking problem is debatable. He used to drink like one or two glasses of whiskey a day. He only tended to get drunk at like weddings and funerals and that type of thing, which were far and few between. My father's drinking wasn't anywhere near as bad as my mother's drinking was. Um, but I think mental illness does run in my family, just percentage wise. It's just too much coincidence that too many people in my family have had mental problems and um, had to take medications for it, or should have taken medications for it. I don't believe when my sister committed suicide, she was actually on medications. Or if she wasn't taking them, or they weren't working. I don't know. I hadn't spoken to my family in years when my sister committed suicide, so I don't know exactly what her situation was, whether or not she was on medications. But I believe that schizophrenia and psychosis, depression, anxiety, they all tend to run in families, although nobody knows for sure what causes schizophrenia and other mental disorders. Some studies that do exist tend to suggest that genetics and family history play a role, as well as environmental factors in family situations, and as well as alcohol and drugs. And that's another thing. I have used illegal drugs. I've used marijuana. I've smoked hash. Tried cocaine a couple of times. Never really got addicted to cocaine. It really never did that much for me. The one drug that I did abuse that made my psychosis worse was I would use stimulant prescription diet pills, not to lose weight, but because they act like amphetamines and they cause a sense of euphoria, a sense of elation, um, happiness, for lack of a better word. Um, I remember I would sometimes binge on diet pills and be up for 3 or 4 days without sleeping. But after a while, that feeling of elation and euphoria just sort of wore off, and I became just more agitated and nervous from stimulant diet pills, and they would just end up causing me severe anxiety to the point where I'd be visibly, physically shaking. My hands are shaking, my body's shaking. Um, and it got to the point where using those pills made no sense anymore. Um, and I did go to drug treatment for those on an outpatient basis. It was never court ordered. I did it voluntarily. I never got arrested for drug use. Um, just went into outpatient treatment myself, and I was eventually able to stop taking those pills. And as far as the marijuana and the hash, that was relatively easy to stop because they're not really physically addictive. There was no physical withdrawal from that. At least that's what my experience was. So I think drug abuse, alcohol abuse, mental illness, they all tend to run in families. Um, that's not 100% all of the time, of course. Different people's families have different situations. Um, and did my marijuana use and black hash use contribute to my psychosis? I don't know. Did the diet pills contribute to my psychosis? I have no doubt they did. Um, it's more likely that the stimulant diet pills contributed to my psychosis because it's a well known fact that drugs like amphetamines, Ritalin, phentermine, which is the drug I was abusing, which is chemically similar to amphetamine, can cause psychosis when taken chronically. And I was definitely taking them chronically every day. I was ordering them online illegally. It was years ago. Haven't touched those pills in well over 15 years. But when I used them, they definitely contributed to my psychosis and aggravating my psychosis, which was already there. Um, the only drugs I'm using now, like I mentioned before, are regular cigarettes and coffee. Um, I really should cut down on the coffee, and I definitely need to quit smoking cigarettes. And addiction to cigarettes, I think, is also something that runs in families. A lot of my brothers and sisters smoke, they all quit by now. My father was a heavy smoker. My mother was a heavy smoker. And I'm struggling to quit, and I'm turning 56 next month. So I've been smoking cigarettes for a long time, on and off, since I was 18. I picked up smoking in the Rochester Psychiatric Center when I was 18, 19 years old. Um, really started getting into cigarettes then. And by the time I got to college, I was smoking pretty regularly. Um, so, yeah, I think that mental illness, whether it's a psychotic break or psychotic mental illness, or a mood disorder, or anxiety disorder, or personality disorder, I think those things, at least in part, do run in the families of many people who have those illnesses. Um, Even if they tend to skip a generation, I think they can run in families. There needs to be more scientific studies done on that, though. And drugs certainly aggravate psychosis and mental illness. Um, some studies show that teenagers who use marijuana more likely to develop schizophrenia in early adulthood. And schizophrenia usually shows up in early adulthood between like the ages of 16 and 25. And it comes on gradually, usually not suddenly. Um, so that's all for now. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Press the notification bell for when I put out new videos. And if you want me to do a video on a specific subject, let me know in the comment section.